Albert Camus was more than just a philosopher. He was a rebel, a thinker who dared to confront the most terrifying question of all. If life has no meaning, why should we bother living? He rejected religion. He rejected the idea of a divine plan. And yet, he refused to fall into the despair of nihilism. Instead, he proposed something radical, that even in a meaningless universe, we can still live fully, even joyfully. But here's the paradox. Camus' philosophy begins with the darkest question imaginable. If nothing matters, isn't suicide the only logical response? He called this the only truly serious philosophical problem. And it's a problem that many thinkers before him, from Friedrich Nietzsche to Fyodor Dostoevsky, wrestled with. But Camus had a different answer, one that might change the way you see your own life. This is the story of a man who faced the abyss and found a reason to keep going, a story that might just change yours. Imagine waking up in a world where everything you do is meaningless. No divine purpose, no grand destiny, no ultimate reward for your struggles. This is the reality that Albert Camus confronted, a world that doesn't provide answers no matter how desperately we seek them. But Camus wasn't the first to face this crisis. Friedrich Nietzsche saw the death of God as the beginning of a terrifying era of meaninglessness. Dostoevsky explored the dangers of a world where morality collapses under the weight of doubt. Even Jean-Paul Sartre, Camus' contemporary, believed that without external meaning, we are condemned to absolute freedom, forced to create meaning on our own. But Camus saw something different. He called it the absurd, the contradiction between our deep desire to find meaning and the cold, indifferent universe that offers none. We search for purpose, yet the world remains silent. We seek order, but life is filled with chaos. The absurd is everywhere. It's in the student who studies for years, only to graduate into a job he hates. It's in the worker who repeats the same meaningless routine every day. It's in the person who builds a life, only to watch it disappear with time. This realization is enough to break anyone. Many thinkers saw only two options: embrace nihilism or escape into illusion. But Camus refused both. He believed that once we recognize the absurd, we are faced with a choice. And that choice would define everything. Most people, when faced with the absurd, collapse into despair. They either embrace nihilism, believing that life is pointless, or escape into comforting illusions, religion, ideology, or blind optimism. But Albert Camus rejected both paths. If the universe has no meaning, he argued, then we are free to create our own. Not in a grand, cosmic sense, but in the way we choose to live every single day. Camus' answer to the absurd is revolt, not as an act of violence, but as a state of mind, a refusal to surrender to meaninglessness. Instead of being crushed by the absurd, we must embrace it, live fully despite it, and find joy in the struggle itself. To illustrate this, he gave us one of the most famous metaphors in philosophy, the myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus was condemned by the gods to roll a massive boulder up a mountain, only to watch it roll back down for eternity. A pointless, never-ending task. But Camus tells us to imagine Sisyphus smiling. Why? Because he has accepted his fate. He knows the struggle is endless, yet he embraces it. He does not search for a greater meaning. He finds meaning in the act itself. To Camus, we are all Sisyphus. We wake up, go to work, chase dreams, experience love and loss, knowing that in the end, everything will fade. But that doesn't mean we should stop living. Instead, we should rebel against the absurd by fully embracing life. Camus' philosophy isn't about despair, it's about freedom. If life has no predefined meaning, then we are completely free to define it for ourselves. He called this the happiness of the absurd man. It's not about waiting for purpose to be given to us. It's about choosing to live despite the lack of one. And that is what makes life truly meaningful. Albert Camus spent his life challenging the idea of destiny. He believed in chance, in randomness, in the absurdity of existence. He rejected the idea that our lives follow a predetermined path. And yet, his own death would become one of the most haunting ironies in philosophy. On January 4, 1960, Camus was traveling with his friend and publisher, Michel Gallimard, in a Facile Vega, a luxurious but notoriously unstable car. They were on a quiet road in France, heading back to Paris. Camus was supposed to take the train, but at the last moment he changed his plans. Then, the unexpected happened. The car lost control and crashed into a tree at high speed. Camus died instantly. In his pocket, they found an unused train ticket, a chilling reminder that he wasn't even supposed to be in that car. But the story doesn't end there. Some believe it was simply a tragic accident. Others, including some Soviet defectors, claim that the KGB orchestrated the crash, considering Camus a threat for his outspoken criticism of communism. There's no definitive proof, but the uncertainty surrounding his death only adds to the absurdity he so often wrote about. But what makes Camus's death even more poetic is that he had spent years writing about the meaningless, random nature of life, only to die in a way that seemed almost scripted by fate. His final, unfinished manuscript, The First Man, was found in the wreckage. In it, he was reflecting on his past, his childhood, and his search for identity. It was meant to be his most personal and profound work. And just like that, his story was cut short. The man who told us to revolt against the absurd was taken by it in the most absurd way imaginable. But even in death, Camus left behind a question. If life is unpredictable, if death can come at any moment, how should we live? Albert Camus did not want us to surrender to despair. He did not ask us to find meaning in ancient texts, divine laws, or philosophical systems. Instead, he challenged us to accept the absurdity of life and live fully in spite of it. His philosophy is not about hopelessness, it is about freedom. If the universe does not give us meaning, then we are completely free to create our own. And in that freedom, there is something profoundly powerful. Most people spend their lives searching for meaning, convinced that they must find a higher purpose, a grand destiny that will justify their existence. Some look for it in religion, others in success, love, or legacy. But Camus tells us that this search is futile. There is no preordained meaning waiting for us. And yet, that is not a tragedy. It is an opportunity. Without external meaning imposed upon us, we have the chance to define life on our own terms. We are not bound by cosmic rules or higher plans. Instead, we are free to experience joy, love, creation, and beauty, simply because we choose to. And that is what makes life worth living. To Camus, happiness is not found in searching for meaning. It is found in embracing the experience of life itself. A life without illusions, but also without resignation. This is why he asks us to imagine Sisyphus smiling. The myth is tragic only if we assume that Sisyphus despairs. But what if he doesn't? What if he finds joy in the struggle? What if he learns to love the absurdity of it all? This is Camus' final message. If there is no inherent meaning in the universe, then everything we do is an act of creation. Our love, our laughter, our struggles, our moments of peace, they are not meaningless. They are ours. And perhaps that is meaning enough. So the final question is not whether life has meaning. The real question is, can you embrace life knowing that it has no ultimate purpose? Can you, like Sisyphus, push the boulder up the hill and smile? If this video made you think differently about life, make sure to subscribe and leave a like. It really helps bring deep discussions like this to more people. We explore the biggest questions of philosophy, self-discovery, and the human experience every week. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. Thank you for being part of this journey. See you in the next one.